Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, we can see us.
Good thing.
And as I
Okay.
said, everybody is muted except you. Therefore, because I didn't see the moderator, I will make Samuel a co-host as well. Samuel, you are a co-host. In case you are answering questions during the discussion, he can help you to unmute them and they can respond. Thank you. You can take it up from here.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good evening to everyone. It's a privilege to share with you on this platform. Okay, so we're going to start right away. And today we are exploring different research methodologies that suit study. So we want to believe that everyone here uh, is have either started your research, or you are within the research, or you're finished, but then you're planning to do another research. So it's very, very important as uh, we go to read this topic, okay? So, is it changing? Okay. So if you want to build a house, you obviously need an architecture that will design. You will need good materials. You will need experts to build a house. You need the plan. You need everything to build that house. Same goes to when you want to do a research. You need to have a clear research question. You need to have an appropriate methodology, a suitable data collection methods, and proper analysis techniques. And in most of our webinars here, we've seen different analysis techniques for the different methods, which will not be covered in this study. So what is research? This is just a process where you are investigating a problem in order to solve that problem, or in order to bring a new knowledge. Maybe you want to improve on an existing knowledge, or you want to solve a particular problem, then you are doing a research. So we do research in medicine. Maybe you want to investigate the effectiveness of a new malaria drug. In agriculture, maybe you want to test the different types of fertilizers on different types of maize production. Does it increase the yield of the maize? Cultivating everything, or you want to check if the soil that you add the fertilizer to is in accordance in such a way that it improves the maize production. Okay. Also in engineering, maybe you're building a bridge, and so you need to determine the type of concrete, or maybe you want to add some fibers into the concrete to make it much more stronger, or having a high compressive strength. You can also be working in the field of environmental science, where you are assessing water pollution, or you're assessing air pollution, you're assessing soil pollution. So, what is research methodology then? Now we've seen research. What is the methodology? What is the research methodology? Now, this is just a strategy, or the approach in which you are going to use to do that research in which you want to. Okay. Now, it is just how you are going to collect your data, how you are going to interpret the data, where will you collect the data, and how will you analyze that data. So a research is just like a journey where you are moving. Maybe you want to move from, let's say, from Nigeria to Benin Republic, or to Senegal. And then the methodology now is a roadmap. How do you live from Nigeria to Senegal? Then the methods now that you're going to carry out in your research now could be like, what will you use in order to live from Nigeria to Senegal? Are you going to use a flight? Will you use a bicycle? Will you use a bus? Will you use a car? Or will you even trek? So you now have different methods that you are going to use in accomplishing your research. So in methods, the methods we have like questionnaires, interviews, and we can also use questionnaires, we can use interview, we can use experiments, okay? But then the methodology now is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Is it a mixed approach? Which type of quantitative, which type of qualitative that are you going to use in order to carry out your research? We're going to see that further. So next, why methodology matters? Why do you have to know the type of methodology you are carrying out? Why does it matter? It helps you to choose appropriate tools and techniques. If you want to build a small building, maybe just 2 rooms, what will you use? Are you going to just buy maybe 500,000 bricks to build a house? Are you going to have a very deep foundation? So it helps you to know what to use, how to use it, and then it's going to make you to get reliable findings. If you don't have a good methodology, you're not going to get reliable findings. Then you also collect reliable data. You can't just sit and say, oh, okay, on my way from Nigeria to Senegal, I assume that I'm going to meet some plantations on the way, but you actually didn't do it. Or you took flight and so you couldn't see any plantations because you didn't use a car where you passed through the road to see that there were plantations on the roadside. Now, it also minimizes biases where you imagine you increases or you reduces what was supposed to be done, but then it minimizes those biases. It validates your research and makes it reliable, that someone can repeat exactly what you have done. So, for example, you interview 5 students to determine the national exam performance. So, do you think that this research study is good or not? Can you jot it? Can someone just, I would like to see the chart, type it down. If you think that this study is good or if it is wrong, can you say it and the reason? If you can put up your hand, then I will just unmute you. Then you explain why you think that 5 students to determine a national exam performance is good or bad. Can I see the charts? Please, I'm waiting. Hello, are we here? Is it good or bad? Okay. Christy says it is wrong. Christy, can you explain why? Okay. Samuel, please, if you see the hand raised up, can you unmute? We can as well just type it. Okay, because it's not representative of the total population. Excellent, Christy. You have a national exam performance, which means 5 students cannot write a national exam. It will be hundreds, thousands of students. So you selecting 5 out of thousands to do a research, it doesn't work. So you find out that your methodology is wrong. Okay, so we have different types of research methodologies. The three main categories are: you have the quantitative, the qualitative, and the mixed methods. And all these actually based on their research aim and question. If you don't have a research, the aim of which you want to carry out the research or research questions, then it's difficult for you to have a good research methodology. We're going to see that as we go ahead. So for quantitative research, this is the research that focuses on numerical data and statistical analysis. You're going to have a whole lump of data that you have to analyze. You plot, you have pie charts, you have a column, you have different types of graphs where you use to analyze your data. So it is numerical. With quantitative research, you have large sample size. You use statistical analysis in quantitative, and it is an objective finding. It is very, very objective. For the data collection methods that you are going to use for a quantitative research, you use surveys, questionnaires, measurements, laboratory tests. So you can actually have surveys, you can actually have questionnaires, you can do some measurements. Maybe you are measuring every week the height of the maize as it's being affected by the fertilizers that you've planted. Or you can be in the laboratory to find out different effects of the amount of maybe fibers you put in the concrete. How does it increase the strength? Does it reduce the strength? Does it makes it much more wearing? Does it increase a lot? And so on. And so quantitative research is mostly used even in the medicine field. For example, for drug effectiveness study, it's used in engineering, as I said, for concrete strength testing or for bridges, houses, and so on. It is also used in agriculture for fertilizers performance. It's used for environmental studies. For example, pollution, air pollution, soil pollution, water pollution. Okay, and then some examples that we can see for quantitative research. For example, you want to work on the effect of biochar on plant growth. You need a research question for you to be able to get a good research methodology, as we said. So what would be the research question? Would be, what is the effect of different biochar application rates on plant growth? Or you could use the hypothesis, which is biochar application significantly increases plant growth. And how do you go about it? Now you know you have to apply different amounts of biochar. Maybe or it could still be different types of biochar. Then you measure the plant height, maybe weekly or after 2 weeks. So then you're going to have the treatment and the plant height in which you want to investigate. You also need to get the control. The control will be the plants in which you do not apply the biochar. You plant in a normal soil, and then you have biochar A, you have biochar B in the soil. So you now monitor the height of the plants as the weeks go by. And maybe at the end, the yield in which you have the crops. Another example could be, does fertilizer A increase maize yield? So with this, you're going to get data like the yield in kg per hectare. Now you have hectare or per square meter. Plants height in centimeter that you have carried out weekly. And now you need to do statistical analysis. So you need to look for the mean, for the height, because of you have different, you have many plants, so you need to get the mean, the standard deviation, and the t-test. Then for qualitative research, this exploits experiences, your feelings, the opinions, the behaviors of people, how people think about a particular problem. So in qualitative research, it is non-numerical data. You will have non-numerical data. You will not have data where you are analyzing to say, okay, this plant grew 2 centimeter, 3 centimeter, 10 centimeter. So you are analyzing. No. But with this research method also, you have smaller size samples compared to the quantitative research methodology. And this one, you have detailed understanding. So the advantage with this one is that you have detailed understanding of the research you are carrying out. And it is also very, very flexible, because you can just choose maybe one hospital, you go in and you ask questions to patients, or you want to see how the, the doctors and the nurses, how they use a particular instrument, how they're working, what do they think about some particular group of patients, like those having diabetes, or during COVID, how do they behave? Okay, so the type of questions that you have to answer when doing qualitative research is: why does this happen? How do people experience this? What are people's views about the problem? And what do these people mean? What do they understand? What is their idea? What is their belief about the problem? And then, so for you to carry out this method, you can this qualitative research methodology, you can use interviews, you can use focus groups, where you focus maybe on students using AI for to do assignments. That's a focus group. You focus on students only. Then you can also do observations. Maybe you just observe, how do nurses use the medical uh, report to explain to patients, or to work with patients. You just observe how it goes. Then it could also be with documents. You study, for example, you study the policies of an of a university that is put in place to understand how AI tools will be used by students in that institution. So you can just use a policy. Some examples for qualitative research will also be research question. Remember, you need your research question to get a good research methodology. How do farmers perceive climate change? That's a qualitative uh, research question. Now, you have to carry out interviews, maybe within 100 or 200 farmers. You record their responses, and then you now analyze common terms, what this farmer says and this one says, how do they correlate? How are they together? So now you put the findings together. Maybe the farmer says reduce rainfall. They talked about increased temperature, crop failure. When there's increase in temperature, with as climate has changed, there is their crops are no longer doing well. So it is the farmers' ideas, opinions of how climate change is affecting them. Now, another example could be, what challenges do students face in online studies? So the data you're going to get You have students' opinions, their experiences, their feelings, and what would be the possible findings from this study? You have poor internet connections. Others may complain of having that the cost of data is high for them to connect so that they can do online studies. So they will prefer to do to be physical in their learning. Then some can also complain having limited access to devices. Maybe the student doesn't don't have laptops or don't have a smartphone, so they prefer physical learning. Now, the third main category of research methodology, mixed method. It combines the quantitative and the qualitative approaches. So why is this used? It provides more complete understanding. So if you understand, if you have a quantitative study, and then you add the qualitative, it makes the study much more reliable, and you have a complete study of why was your result in the quantitative analysis increasing or decreasing. Now you get people's opinion, you understand more of why the study went that way, either increasing or decreasing. For example, does e-learning improve student performance? Or it could be in a hypothesis form. Students using online learning platform performance better academically than those do better academically than those who do not. Now, the quantitative analysis here will be comparing examination scores. You compare the students' results, those who are using e-learning or those who are not using the e-learning. The qualitative, now you interview the students to ask their experience. When you are using e-learning, how do you feel? What happens? Do you understand? Does it affect you? Do you concentrate when you are using e-learning or not? Then the benefit, the advantage of this is that you are having the numerical evidence and you're having human experiences. That is both the quantitative and the qualitative analysis, which is much more reliable. Another example would be, how effective are mosquito nets in preventing malaria? The quantitative study will be, you count the malaria cases. You go to a community, you ask them, you find out how many people have malaria cases. And then the next part of the research, you do a qualitative research. You interview every household. You have do you have mosquito nets? How do you use them? Do you use them in a correct way? And what is your opinion about using mosquito nets? Others may have the mosquito nets and they refuse to use them. Some may say, oh, it increases heat. I don't have AC, it increases heat. People have, or some may say it is not aesthetic. It does not, it remove the decoration in my room. I like my room without the mosquito net. So people have different opinions. So you get the different opinion. That's qualitative now. And now the outcome will be how much malaria decreased or increased with those using mosquito nets. And why people use or do not use the mosquito net, you get to understand it. And once you understand this study, when you do a mixed study, it can be a very good base for you to do another research. You can then go in further to say, okay, let's go back to this house. We educate them on the importance of mosquito nets or how to use mosquito nets effectively. And maybe you get to explain to them that it is only in your mind when you say it increases heat when you use mosquito nets. So it makes your study much more reliable and it could be a foundation for further studies. Now, what are the factors you have to consider before starting your research methodology? As I said, you need you need your research aim and questions. Research questions are very, very important. And you cannot get research aim and research questions when you have not done literature review. So before ever starting a study, you have to do literature review. This is going to help you not to repeat, not and to understand the gap and ask a better, good research questions, which when you use the methodology, you won't have a time where a reviewer is telling you this work does not have innovation because your research question is wrong due to poor literature review. You can't rely totally on AI to give you a research gap. You have to do literature review. And for you to do, for you to continue with your research methodology, you need to ask yourself, do you have available resources for you to do this research? You want to do a research on what do African presidents think about the time in which they spend in their offices as a president. It may not be a good research question, because are you sure you're going to meet with all the African presidents to get their opinion? That would be a very difficult. Or you are doing a laboratory, you are doing experiments in the laboratory. You have to check, do I have the necessary equipment to do this experiment? Or if not, are they available in another lab? Does my finances equal to me taking those samples to another lab? Am I able to fund this research? Very, very important. So, how do you start your research methodology? As we said, your research aim and your research questions. This would determine the type of information you need. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, what am I trying to find out? What am I trying to do in this research? So with that, it helps you to bring out different research questions that will help you to get a good research methodology. For example, does organic fertilizer increase male yield? So what information is needed here? You need the crop yield measurement and the plant height. But then, what type of data is suitable for this methodology? Can someone tell me the type of data that is suitable for this methodology? In the comment section, please. What type of data, what type of research methodology is suitable? What type of methodology is suitable for you to carry out the research on, does organic fertilizer increase maize yield? Is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Is it mixed? What will you use? Okay. I didn't see Oluwa before. She answered it correctly also. And I asked the first question. It is not a full representative of the national population. That was good. Christine says quantitative, quantitative. Anita says quantitative. Suba mixed with quantitative done. Quantitative, root. Okay. Root says mixed. Gaddafi says quantitative. Gloria says quantitative. Excellent. Quantitative. For those who say mixed, if you want to do further research, mixed is okay. But the primary research methodology here will be quantitative because you have to do measurement. It requires data for you to do this study. Okay. So another example is, how do farmers perceive the use of biofertilizers? What information is needed here? You need the farmers' opinions, you need their experiences, you need the challenges. Those are the type of information you want to get from the farmers. And the type of data will be the words, the narrative, their opinions, their feelings. And so the suitable methodology that will be used here, obviously, we know is qualitative, right? So because the researcher wants to understand the people's view and their experiences, their feelings, their opinions. Excellent. Um, yeah. Okay, so another example is, does online learning improve academic performance? And how do students experience it? How do students experience it? The information you need here is the examination score of the students. You need students' opinion. So what do you think will be a suitable methodology? And why? I want to see the answers coming in. Mixed, mixed, good. Subase mixed, Christy mixed, Muzabel mixed. Excellent. So why do you think it will be mixed? I'm glad you guys are following. We are on the same page. Okay, Chrissy said because it requires both qualitative and quantitative. Good. Mixed because Olua says mixed because you are working with numbers and also their experience is excellent. Okay, yeah, we are on the same page. Now, we have research designs. Within these three main categories, we have different research designs or the different types in which you can carry out. With quantitative research, you can actually do an experiment. You can do a correlational research. You can also do a descriptive research. We're going to see that more in the next slides. And with qualitative, we can get exploratory, we can get case study, descriptive, that's a narrative explaining how it goes, their feelings. And then with the mixed methods, we can combine the quantitative and now the qualitative. So for example, if you want to do experimental methodology, you use quantitative. For descriptive, you can either use a quantitative or qualitative method. For exploratory, you can use qualitative and you can use mix, which means there'll be some quantitative methods in it. And correlational, you have quantitative. For a case study, you could have qualitative mix with some quantitative within. Now, when it is experimental research methodology, you know you are investigating the cause and the effects, the relations, how it affects variables. So you are working between variables, the cause and the effects within variables. So the key component for an experimenter, you need to have an independent variable, which is the factor that the researcher changes or manipulates. You are changing is an independent variable. But the dependent variable now is the outcome measured after the intervention. Then you need a control group, will be the group in which you don't have, it does not receive an intervention. So it's like a placebo or a standard treatment. Now, the experimental groups are those that you have applied the treatment to. So it receives the intervention. For example, testing a new water purification material. Group A uses normal filter. You have a household that is using normal filter, and you have a new purification material, where you now is group B, you use another household. So you compare this filter and this filter. Now you see the effect. Those who use the normal filter, how is the water pure? Can they have cholera after using the normal filters? What are the effects and how long will the normal filter stays? And the new filter, is it much more effective than the normal ones? How does it affect the individuals after using the water from the new filters? So you have different studies now, different quantitative measurements that you are bringing up in an experimental research. For example, we want to talk about Parkinson's disease. Now, the research question will be, does a new drug improve motor systems in Parkinson's disease patients? So the independent variable here will be new Parkinson's drug. And the dependent variable will be motor function score. And so now you need to do the design. You have the group and the treatment. So you have the experimental group is the new drug, the new Parkinson's drug that you are applying to the patients. And then the control group are those who are using the standard drugs. At the end of it, you're going to measure the tremors, the working ability of the patients, the muscle stiffness. All this, you do them before and after the treatment for both the new drug and the standard drug. And what will be the expected outcome? If the experimental group improves significantly more than the control group, then we can say we have a new drug that is effective to treat Parkinson's disease. For a descriptive research methodology, it describes, it observes, and documents characteristics of populations, phenomena, or groups without manipulating variables. Therefore, you don't have data that you are manipulating. Okay, so it answers these questions. What is happening in this problem? Who is involved? Where is it occurring? When is it occurring? How frequently does it occur? And the characteristics of descriptive research is that it describes existing conditions or different phenomena that happens. As we said, it does not manipulate variables, but it can use quantitative and qualitative or mixed data. You can actually use quantitative and qualitative in descriptive research. It often uses surveys, observations, interviews, records. Maybe after doing interviews, you see that the female of a particular, maybe the female of these animals are having, maybe they have red tails, or the tails are longer than the male. So you have some sort of quantitative. So you're analyzing between two groups of the numbers that are involved in your research. And you've observed that the people in this country behave differently from this, and maybe it is within the children, the female or the male. So you are now having different data that you can analyze. It provides a baseline information for your future research. So after you've done it, you can actually maybe say, okay, I want to do an experiment to prove that these particular females behave this way when this thing happens. Now, the common methods that I use, if for the quantitative methods, now you use the survey, the structural questions, where you see that, okay, the people in this province in a particular country have HIV more than this. more than another province. So what causes it? That is now you have to do qualitative analysis. You also can do census studies, statistical records. You can go to a hospital and take the records to analyze that, okay, the patients with high blood behave, or with this drug does not improve well than this other drug. Then with qualitative methods, you have interviews, focus groups, observations, and document analysis. Some examples, okay, we can be, let's describe it on using artificial intelligence tools among university students. So the research question is, how are university students using AI tools in their academic activities? The quantitative component in this descriptive will be researchers distribute questionnaires to 500 students. So they have a whole lot of data that they can analyze using quantitative method. And then the qualitative component here now will be the researcher interviewing 300 students on how they are using AI tools in their academic activities. So why is this still a research, a descriptive research, and not a totally, when we say it is quantitative? Yeah, in this study, the researcher is not trying to determine whether AI causes better grades. Remember the research question, how are university students using AI tools in their academic activities? How are they using? So the researcher is also not saying whether AI is superior to traditional learning. No, he was not comparing that. The researcher is also not saying whether AI is directly improves their academic activity, their academic results or performance. Instead, the researcher here in this research question wants to study the use of AI, wants to study how often the AI is used, and their experiences, their perceptions on how they are using, how the students are using it. Now, exploratory research methodology is used when you have little information. For example, COVID in 2020, or you have a new, an innovation that has just popped up. So you dive into it to do an exploratory research to find out about it. So you work on it. So the purpose is just to gain an initial understanding on what is happening in that field, or what is happening with COVID. What is COVID-19? How is it affecting people? If you wear masks, do you get it? Or if you don't wear mask, if you move around, if someone who coughs around you, will you have the COVID or not? Just initial way, it's just starting. And when is it used? When you have limited information, very limited information, very limited literature, it's just a new innovation, is something new that has just come up. You have a topic that is emerging. So you quickly work on it to get an initial understanding on what is happening. For example, investigating the use of AI in agriculture in Africa. So you can use different methods like interview, you can do literature review, and then you can do observations. How farmers apply AI, do they just stay at home and watch how their crops are growing, so you can calculate the crop height while at home using your device, using AI? Or you go use a ruler, calculate, put, okay, this one has grown this high. So it all depends. Now the outcome will be to generate future research questions that will be a basis for you to carry out further research. We also have correlational research methodology, which examines the relationship between variables. You want to understand how this affects this one. But you also have to understand that correlation here does not imply causation. So the purpose of this is just to find relationships. For example, positive, negative, no correlation. This uh, increase in fertilizer increases the height of maize, just like that. For example, relationship between study time and exam scores. Study time and exam scores. The possible result will be students who study more tend to score higher. So you could interpret it as variables are related, but may not necessarily cause the other. So it doesn't mean that if students have studied more, then it means that they will obviously have high score. There are students that have high IQ. They use less time to study and they just pass. Or it could be a student where the student just wake up that morning, glance through a particular section, goes to the examination room, the questions from that section comes in, and the student has a high score. So it does not necessarily have a causation that this is what will always happen. Now, for another example is there is a significant, let's use a hypothesis now. There is a significant relationship between social media use and students' academic performance. So, why are we using correlation here? The researcher is not changing anything. Instead, they are just examining whether two variables are related. For example, the two variables here will be the hours spent on social media and the GPA of the students. That's just the two variables they want to compare. But as we said, correlation does not mean causation. Another example is ice cream sales increased, drowning cases increased. Now the question is, does ice cream cause drowning? The answer is no. It doesn't mean if there's increase in sales of ice cream, then there's increase in drowning. It could be that there is hot weather, so the hot weather causes drowning, and there is also increase in ice cream because people are feeling thirsty, so people tend to buy ice cream. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the correlation will always have a causation. Now, for a case study, you just want to have an in-depth investigation of a particular case. You go to a hospital, you will just want to analyze the patients that are having maybe COVID-19 or a particular hospital on those having high blood. Not necessarily maybe 10 hospitals in a province or generally hospitals in Africa. Advantage of this study is that you have detailed information because the population size will not be much, so you can take your time and really get good study. And it mostly work on real world context. So it is not abstract. And the limitation here now is that your result may not apply to all situations. You are working with rainy season and dry season. It doesn't mean you go to Europe and you do that same research. There is no rainy season and dry season in Europe or in the Western world. So the research is now limited to a particular area, geographical area, or a situation. So before we conclude, let's do some activities. Now we are going to identify more suitable methods for each of these topics. So you can read through it and then you answer the question. Number one, effect of organic fertilizer on tomato yield. Which research methodology will you use? Can I see the answers coming in? So if you are answering any of it, just write one. You write the methodology. Effect of organic fertilizer on tomato yield. Let's get the answers coming in. Okay. Number one, Suba say number one, he's going to use quantitative. Number two, he's going to use qualitative. Chrissy said number two, she's going to use qualitative. Okay. Suba said number three, correlational study. I think we are about 34 of us here. I want to see more responses coming in, please. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Choose any number and then you say the study you feel. Yeah, Suba says number four, quantitative. Excellent. Ruth, one, quantitative. Christine, number five, qualitative. Okay. Wow, Suba has finally answered all the questions. Says qualitative. Anita says number four, mixed. Good. Samuel says number one, mixed, and number two, qualitative. Okay, we say the most suitable methodology. So Beatrice says four, mixed. Precious says four, mixed. Okay. Olaulua says three, correlational. Number four, mixed. Number five, qualitative. Okay. Let them keep coming in. I want to see others responding. Okay, Ruth has been answering. Let's go on. Type in your answers. Can I see answers? More answers? Okay, Beatrice says exploratory for number five. Okay. I've not seen anyone talking about descriptive. I've not seen anyone talking about experimental. Okay. Beatrice, Christy says correlational for number three. Good. Somewhere three correlational, four exploratory, five descriptive. Good. Anita says two qualitative, three correlational, five descriptive. Good. Ruth, one. One can also be experimental. Excellent. Okay. Yes, let's keep the answers coming in. Pressure says five qualitative. Okay. Any more? Okay, I can't see more people coming. So let's see what it says. Now, the research topic, effect of organic fertilizer on tomato yield. Nearly everyone, in fact, everybody got number one, quantitative, which is experimental, as Ruth said. Why? So the researcher manipulates the amount of fertilizer, measures the effects on the tomato yield, and then you investigate the cause and the effect relationship. Okay. Now, for number two, students' perception of AI in education. Qualitative. I think nearly everyone also got this. The student exploits the study will exploit students' opinion because you want to get the person's belief, the person's feeling on what he has to do, and which it could be descriptive. So number three, relational between social relationship between social media use and academic performance. It has already said relationship, so it should be correlational, which is under quantitative, of course, because this is actually uh, trying to compare between two variables. Performance of a new water filter is experimental, which is quantitative, because you're going to now compare the new one to the old one, or how effective does is the new one to the old water filter. Then experiences of COVID-19 survival, qualitative, of course, as you guys said, descriptive also be used here. The study now seeks to understand the personal experiences, the people's feelings, or their recovery journey, the challenges during COVID. How did they survive? Okay, so that was good. That was, I love all the answers. So the common mistakes in selecting research methodology: choosing a method before defining the problem. That is why you need to go back to your literature review. You have a research gap, or you have a particular problem that you are solving. So you have to define the problem. That is problem statement, well defined. Using interviews when numerical data are required. Okay, you are supposed to check the new filter and the old filter, water filter. You decide to do an interview for the person who has never even known that there is a new one, will answer your question somehow. So the interview is not necessary here. You are replacing, you are putting a method where it's not supposed to be. Using surveys when detailed experiences are needed. You need to go to the lab. Rather, you are there doing surveys. Or you are selecting a complex method without expertise. You don't have the expertise. You want to produce, you want to make maybe the wing of the plane in Africa without you having the necessary equipment for you to produce the wings of the plane. It is so complex for you to produce that part. And how will you test it if you cannot produce a full plane? So you're just you're just looking at a big problem where you don't have an expertise, or where you don't have instruments to do the experiment, or you ignore ethical considerations. You work on patients without seeking their consent, without them signing a consent form. Your findings are not ethical. You now turn to do false research methodology. Now, in concluding, for you to do a good research, to have a good research methodology, ask yourself some questions. What is my research question? Therefore, you're going back to literature, having the aim, because it's from the aim that you always have research question. Why do you want to carry out that research? And what type of data do I need? How much, how much time and resources do I have? You have 2 years, maybe for masters, 3 years for PhD. Do you have that time to do the research? Do you have all the resources? Do you have the funding? What is my target population? It's not because you get a problem that you just rush to do it. What is your target population? One person dies of cholera somewhere, you just rush into conclusion, oh, okay, I want to do a research of cholera in this area. By the time you finish doing your research and testing, you discover that it's only that one person who had it and died, no any other person had it again. So at the end of it, what's the sample size? 1. Do I need numbers? Do I need opinion? Or do I need both? Do I need to do mixed research methodology in this study? So ask yourself these questions before you step into doing a research. So thank you for listening. And remember, good research begins with choosing the right methodology. So if you have any question, please put it on the chat. Somewhere will help me to read. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Philip, please over to you. Somewhere. Any question, please put on the chat. Remember that the statistics, for you to do statistics in analyzing your data, you need to also know the right tool to use to do your analysis, which I think we have done the webinar before, and I think maybe another webinar on that will come up, so which is now going to complete this study, all right, or this webinar for today. So any question, you can put up your hand and someone will unmute you, then you ask your question. I'm hoping that from now on, we can be confident going to do research, knowing exactly what to do, not thinking, oh, how do I start? Where do I start? How do I have a method? I'm hoping that this webinar today has answered your questions. But then if you have any question, please just put up your hand or put on the chat. Let's get to you. Is Dr. Philip there? Okay, let me see. We have Dr. Ishola. We have Dr. Chuka is around. So I'll like my colleagues, if there is anything you can add for the students to get much more understanding, then you can unmute. Okay, Dr. Chuka, over to you since you were the coordinator here.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Linda Numfor, for your presentation. You've actually touched all aspects of choosing the right tools for your research according to the research questions. My feeling is that it appears that people really gained a lot, that almost everything has been handled. Probably that is why there are no questions on the chat, because I'm also expecting questions on the chat. So while we expect questions, I would like to, in your presentation, you made a slight touch on research, an instance of a research, like looking for why or how malaria has, the prevalence of malaria has reduced or not in the use of mosquito nets, and probability of using quantitative research methods to also find out from the people in any such area why they may or may not be using the mosquito net. So will you refer to that as mixed? And in the light of, will you refer to that as mixed in the light of implementation research, the methods used in implementation research. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Chuka. Yeah, mix would be good because at the end of it, you can have the number of mosquito nets being used and or the number of households using mosquito nets or the number of patients that or household that are sick of are having malaria due to not using mosquito nets or using mosquito nets wrongly. So you have data with you to analyze, and at the same time, you have the people's opinion on why they're using the mosquito nets or why they have the mosquito nets and they're not using. So you have opinion and you have data that is numerical for you to analyze. So mixed research methodology is good for that study. So I don't know if
All
I've
right.
answered you. Yeah.
Yes, you've answered my question. You've answered my question. So waiting for any more questions from the chat.
Okay, I can't see more questions. Maybe the other doctors can come in to say something. There, I can see Dr. Ishola, Dr. Kingsley, and Dr. Oritoke Sarang.
All right, we have questions. We have questions. Probably we can start from the one we have at the moment. All right, Dr. Linda, we have a question here. Which is the most ideal method of determining sample size of bacteria or viruses in a particular geographical area, given their ubiquitous number? Which is the most ideal method of determining sample size of bacteria or viruses in a particular geographical region, given their ubiquitous number? This is a question from Mark Kamal Mukoma.
Okay, Mark, thank you. I think the experimenter is the best because you get to work on it to get the sample. To once you're working, you can actually now determine the sample size of the bacteria. Because, for example, if it's like we have bacteria in water, you need to do the test in the lab to count. You do the counting of the number of bacteria found in that uh, particular, maybe river that is found in that geographical region. So the experimenter is the best for you to be able to know that, okay, this is the amount of bacteria that is found in this particular region. So I don't know if I've answered the question, Mark. If not, can you raise your hand and expatiate?
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was asking this question because when you're developing a proposal, you haven't yet gone to the field. But like for example, in my proposal, I'm required to state the sample size of bacteria and viruses that I'm going to work with. So now, how do you go about that before you have done data collection?
Do you have literature on who has worked on that
Which one?
topic or who has worked in that particular region with the virus?
Yeah.
Literature on it, because with literature you can guess the sample size where you know someone has done a previous study, and then you know, okay, if this person did this and got this, then I know my sample size could be this. So from literature, you state from literature you work with, then when you do the experiment, now you can refer back to the literature.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All right. Host, please unmute Dr. Magia. It's like he wants to
Okay.
speak.
Hello? Yeah, can you hear me?
All right, welcome, Dr. Magia.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Chuka. And thank you, Dr. Bin, for a wonderful presentation. Although for the, this period, I'm somehow very busy, try to multitask. But at least the few times I listened, I'll say you did a good job. And one thing I'll say is that this topic is not exhaustive, and there will always be questions, there will always be, matters that will arise when you're trying to do research and you're trying to choose the right methodology. So what I would say is don't be scared to maybe make the wrong step at first. You can choose a methodology, and at the end of the day, along the line, you may run into issues, and you may find yourself looking for a better methodology that will give you the needed result, or that will put you in the right path. Always be open to, exploring different ones until you're able to get the one that suits your research, the kind of research you want to do. And of course, always be open to ask questions, and, be ready to, get expert opinions, when you want to do maybe any study. So definitely you will get it right, maybe after many trials, but don't be scared of, taking the wrong choice or making the wrong choice, or, taking the wrong decision at first. That is how research is. And even at times you may come up with maybe a kind of hypothesis or what have you. And of course, your hypothesis to a large extent will also determine the type of methodology you use. If at the end of the day your hypothesis is not, working, and you feel you want to change it, of course, you can also change your methodology, things like that.
So just be open to, to errors and all that, and keep fine-tuning your methodology until you get the right one for your research. Thank you once again to the presenter. Really appreciate your time and the enormous work you put into preparing this presentation. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome,
All
Doc.
right, thank you. All right, thank you, Dr. Amage, for contribution. There is one more question on the panel for you, Dr. Linda. Is it possible to use just one research methodology for a field experiment, especially in the field of agriculture? That's the question from Olaoluwa Ganiu. Is it possible to use just one research methodology for a field experiment, especially in the field of agriculture?
Yeah, Oluwa, thank you for the question. It's very, very possible for agriculture. If you are using experimental studies, for example, you are applying a fertilizer on the maize to get an increase in the yield, you can actually do only the experimental part, because now you won't go to the field or except there is a particular fertilizer in town where many farmers are using, and then you want to observe that fertilizer and also now get to know why are those farmers using a particular fertilizer, not the previous. So, but if you are the one testing the fertilizer in the farm, then it is okay. Or you want to know why a particular type of maize, maybe the seedlings, the different types of seedlings are affecting. So you can actually plant and observe, do the experiments, and then you do your conclusions. It's okay. And with that, it can even be a future base for you to now go to the field and say, oh, I've observed that farmers use this and this. Then you carry out further research. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Linda. I understand that in the field of agriculture, the field of agriculture is quite broad, and
Yeah.
there are a lot of areas of interest, area of research interest in the field of agriculture, and most times research in agriculture can be all-encompassing and not exhaustive. So most various methods can come in, especially when you want to answer a particular research question exhaustively. Methods. So is it possible to use one methodology? It depends on your question from the beginning, from my understanding, my little experience. So I think it depends on the research question. So thank you, Laura Manila.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let me quickly drop a point in there. Yeah, that was a wonderful talk, and I want to say something about agriculture research in Africa. Is one of the laid back most of agriculture in the research world. And if anybody is in agri sciences or agri study, generally, I want to challenge you that you need to do more. Our history of agriculture is poor from African perspective. Virtually every seed, every literature, especially from Nigeria, I don't know, probably it's applicable to other African countries too. Virtually all the products we are eating in Nigeria, if you go back to the history of agriculture, they said it's imported from somewhere, as if we don't eat anything before those stories. Therefore, I believe those are not our history. It is a wrong history. Those who introduced those into our textbooks were lazy. They could not do more things. And talking about yam, they say yam was imported from somewhere, maize is from somewhere, cassava is from somewhere. History is not well taught. And sometimes, because I'm in in the Western world here, I notice that many of our food rots easily. Yam, there's no reason why we should not have developed a good skills to preserve our yam and many of our food as well. That's why we are eating a lot of Western food in Africa now. Why? Because if you want to eat a fast food, it has to be Western. Our food, many of our food cannot be stored for too long. Those are things that people in nutrition and agric should be able to focus on as well. Therefore, in agric, we can use different methods to study the same questions, and we can use the same method to study several questions. But most importantly, we must be in-depth, and it must be for the purpose of bringing new idea. You notice I posted something about animal yesterday or 2 days ago, about the monkey that was discovered that is new to science. It's our job to bring it to science. The European will write their history. If we don't do our own history, they will just do it the way they want. To them, it's like they don't believe that we have mathematics. Africans have been studying science before Europeans came to limelight, but nobody tell our story the way we tell it. Therefore, it's our responsibility to look around, to pick someone, to encourage someone, especially if you are in agriculture, if you are in animal sciences, if you are in nutrition, and to focus on how to make our food more palatable, more preservable, and that can be exported to the other side, part of the world. If you are into diets, we can focus on those things. Yam, for instance, yam, cocoyam, and many other food can be exported. For us who are here, we can eat it. There is no reason why there should not be a chemical, not a powder form, that if you cut a yam, you can put it and that yam will not spoil for a longer time. We can develop such a skill if you need it, right? You know, is that not what you will go to everybody if you buy a yam? In fact, it's like an idea in my house that we don't buy big yams because we only buy yams that in small quantity, especially those small tuber that you can easily cut and eat once. Because if you cut it and leave it for 2 weeks, it will be spoiled. Therefore, those are things that we can research on because it's our food. The white man will not do it for us. No, people in Europe, that's not their challenge. Therefore, things like that, we need to focus on developing a research method. We can develop, if there's nothing that exists, you can develop it from the scratch. And those things, I believe, should be funded by our local governments and organizations, and we can support something like that. I think, and let's go back into the bush. Those are plants that have not been named. Let's name them. Those are the animals that's unique to us that have not been named. Let's name them. Let's make them. In my work, I'm telling you what I've done. 10 years, more than 10 years ago, I work on pangolin. I reported in pangolin that we have a white cartilage, pangolin white cartilage. It has never been reported before in literature. But yeah, I reported that. And you know, I don't even know that the pangolin have a tongue. The pangolin tongue is as long as almost the full length of the pangolin, but majority of them are inside. I was able to report that as an anatomy scientist doing that work. Therefore, let's go in there and give the richness of our culture and what the God has endowed African with. Let's publish it and bless the whole world with it. And from there, that's when they will honor us. It's good to compete with them, but we will compete in a better form if we use our original God-given resources and solve our own personal problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful contribution in that direction. Okay, thank you for your addition there. I often work with wild yam. The problem is that with the heightened natural sugar content, the yams end up culturing microbiota. And that boils down to what Dr. Philip was also talking about, designing storage, good storage or better storage materials, bringing newer and improved storage or preservation methods to improve how long the products can also live. And from my own understanding, also from my experience, most times our research in agriculture ends at seeds and products, but then the economic aspect of it, we seem not to own it. And when you look at some of the agricultural economic studies coming from other countries, you see them going well into the scaling areas of research. For instance, when you come to research approaches like the life science research. So I believe that.
Okay, before we proceed, I want to stop recording live because to reduce the length that we can, if you have anything to discuss, you can continue thereafter. Is that okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Okay, good. Thank you. I want to stop recording that. That will reduce the length of what we have online. Okay, let's give it to Dr. Linda before we go out of here. Then I will keep the live the Zoom live on. We can for us to chat and continue. Thank you so much for everybody and for the mentor that comes. Stop.